Hey, Vintage Car Chronicles listeners. We're doing something a little bit different today. For all you fans of the show, that daily dose of automotive history on Spotify.
Hmm.
We're going to be taking a deep dive into the career of Michael Schumacher. We've got tons of material here to look through, articles, stats, analyses. But we're not here for a basic, Wikipedia rundown.
Right.
This deep dive is all about figuring out the why behind the legend.
Exactly. We are going to be exploring the driving style, the personality, the lasting impact of a man who is considered by many to be the greatest Formula One driver of all time.
Now, we know Schumacher's journey began really early, like age 6 with that famous kart built from scrap parts. But something I found really interesting is that he didn't actually take the typical Formula 3000 path to Formula One.
Yeah, his manager, Willie Weber, had a different strategy in mind. He wanted to steer Schumacher toward the World Sports Car Championship. The goal was to build experience with more powerful cars and endurance racing, so it wasn't just about reaching Formula One. It was about arriving fully prepared to dominate.
Oh, so it was about developing a different skill set, maybe even a different mindset.
Precisely. And, we see evidence of this calculated approach in the 1990 Macau Grand Prix, a Formula 3 race that became quite controversial.
Oh, fill me in. What happened?
Schumacher executed this, an aggressive overtaking maneuver that resulted in his rival, Mika Häkkinen, crashing out. But here's the incredible part. Schumacher actually won the race without a rear wing.
Wait, no rear wing.
That's it.
Okay, I'm starting to
Wow.
see how these early experiences really shaped him. So how does this karting prodigy finally make it into Formula One?
Well, it's actually quite a whirlwind story. In 1991, he gets a single race with the Jordan team at the Belgian Grand Prix.
Wow,
A single race to prove himself, and he does just that.
one race. That's a pretty high-stakes audition.
Absolutely. His performance was so impressive that Benetton signed him for the rest of the season.
Wow.
They saw raw talent, and they were known for nurturing it.
Okay, so the Benetton years, is this where Schumi, the legend, really starts to emerge?
Absolutely. In 1992, he wins his first Formula One race, again at the Belgian Grand Prix.
Really?
And it's a rain-soaked race foreshadowing his eventual nickname, the Rain King.
Okay, so the wins start coming in, but alongside those victories, we also start to see the first whispers of controversy, right?
Yes, the Benetton years were marked by both triumph and turbulence. He won back-to-back world championships in 1994 and 1995.
Right.
But both seasons were riddled with accusations of cheating against the team, disqualifications, and even a dramatic collision with Damon Hill in the 94 finale, which decided the championship.
Yeah, that 1994 incident was particularly controversial, wasn't it? Yeah. Many still debate whether it was a racing incident or something a bit more calculated.
It's a complex issue for sure. Was Schumacher ruthlessly ambitious, exploiting every possible advantage, or was he simply pushing the limits of the sport operating in this gray area? The debate continues to this day.
So he's a two-time world champion. Incredibly talented, but already carrying some baggage. What happens next?
Well, Schumacher makes a pretty bold move in 1996. He signs with Ferrari, a team steeped in history but struggling to recapture its former glory.
That was a huge gamble, wasn't it? I mean, Ferrari hadn't won a driver's championship in nearly 2 decades at that point.
It was a high-risk, high-reward situation. Schumacher's role went beyond driving. He was tasked with rebuilding the team from within.
Wow.
He attracted key personnel like Ross Brawn and Rory Byrne, creating a powerhouse that would go on to define an era.
So Schumacher becomes the architect of this Ferrari dynasty, but it wasn't an overnight success, was it?
No. The early years were a roller coaster. Schumacher narrowly missed out on the title in the final races of both 1997 and 1998. Then, in 1999, he suffers a broken leg due to brake failure.
Oh, wow.
It was a serious setback, truly tested his resilience.
But in 2000, he comes back with a vengeance.
Right.
The start of an unprecedented period of dominance.
Exactly. Schumacher and Ferrari go on to win an astonishing 5 consecutive world championships from 2000 to 2004.
Wow.
This achievement solidified his place as a legend, but the controversy didn't entirely disappear.
There's always a but with Schumacher, isn't there? What stands out during this Ferrari era?
The 2002 Austrian Grand Prix is a prime example. Schumacher's teammate Rubens Barrichello was leading the race, but Ferrari issued team orders for him to let Schumacher pass, securing him the win.
Yeah, that sparked a huge debate about sportsmanship versus calculated strategy. Was it justified?
Ferrari argued they were maximizing their championship points, prioritizing their lead driver, but for many it left a sour taste, It highlighted the tension between individual ambition and the cold calculations of a team striving for victory.
It's a fascinating dilemma, one that Formula One fans still debate to this day. So let's move on to something a little less controversial.
Yeah.
Schumacher's driving style. The sources describe it as almost superhuman. What set him apart?
Several things. First, his physical fitness was groundbreaking. He was one of the first drivers to really prioritize strength training, focusing on his neck to withstand those immense G-forces.
Right.
This gave him an edge in stamina and focus, allowing him to push both himself and the car further.
So he was a fitness pioneer in a way, setting a new standard for Formula One drivers.
Mm.
What else made his driving so unique?
He was known for pushing his cars to the absolute limit, extracting every ounce of performance. This put immense strain on the machinery,
Yeah.
but it also allowed him to achieve lap times that seemed impossible to others.
So this combination of physical strength and just incredible car control. But there's also this intriguing analysis from F1 Racing magazine in 2003.
Right.
They discovered something pretty remarkable about Schumacher's technique.
They analyzed his telemetry data and found that he was using the brake and throttle simultaneously through corners.
What?
Yeah, it allowed him to maintain speed where others would have to brake significantly, giving him a crucial advantage.
Weight, braking, and accelerating at the same time. How is that even possible?
It sounds counterintuitive, but the analysis suggested that this technique allowed him to carry more speed through the corner, ultimately leading to faster lap times. Very few drivers could master such a nuanced and demanding skill.
So not just raw power and aggression, but a level of finesse and car control that few could match. And of course, we can't forget his legendary skill in the rain.
Ah, yes, the Rain King. Schumacher racked up an astonishing 17 wins out of 30 wet races. This wasn't simply luck. He was known for meticulously studying weather patterns and track conditions,
Right.
always prepared for the unexpected, ready to thrive where others faltered.
He truly was a master of his craft, a driver who seemed to defy the limits of what was possible. But as we'll explore further in this deep dive, there's more to the Schumacher story than just incredible driving. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into his complex legacy and the relationships that shaped his career.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the career of Michael Schumacher. Last time we were talking about his mastery of wet weather, driving, that Rain King mystique. But there's another chapter to this story that I think we really need to explore. His surprise return to Formula One in 2010 with Mercedes.
Right. That comeback really raised a lot of eyebrows.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd already achieved legendary status, broken tons of records.
Yeah.
Why come back after 3 years away from the sport?
The sources suggest a mix of motivations, Schumacher himself talked about, feeling re-energized, craving that challenge and the adrenaline of Formula One. He'd always been so fiercely competitive. Maybe he felt like he had more to give, more to prove.
I mean, some might say he had nothing left to prove. He was already considered by many to be the greatest.
That's a valid point for sure, but maybe this comeback wasn't about external validation. Maybe it was more about testing himself against a new generation of drivers, pushing his own limits once again. And remember, Mercedes was a team on the rise with some pretty ambitious goals. Schumacher, with all his experience and his drive, could have seen this as an opportunity to build something special, much like he did at Ferrari.
But let's be honest, the results weren't really there. He didn't win any races during that second stint. Was it a mistake to come back? Was he past his prime?
That's a question worth considering. Formula One had evolved significantly during his absence. New regulations, new tire compounds, a new breed of incredibly talented drivers like Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton. The competition was fiercer than ever.
So the landscape of the sport had changed, and he was no longer the undisputed king.
Exactly. And we also have to factor in the lingering effects of a motorcycle accident that he had back in 2009.
A motorcycle accident? I don't remember that being widely publicized.
It wasn't. But sources indicate he sustained a neck injury that could have impacted his reflexes and reaction times. It's impossible to say for sure how much it affected his performance, but it's definitely a factor worth considering.
So we have a more competitive field, a driver potentially dealing with the aftermath of this injury, and ultimately no race wins. But were there any highlights, any moments that reminded us of, the Schumacher of old?
Absolutely. In his very first race back in 2010, he finished 6th in Bahrain.
Okay.
A respectable result after 3 years away, showing that he could still mix it up at the front. He had several strong performances that season, including a 4th-place finish at the Turkish Grand Prix.
So flashes of brilliance, even if the consistency wasn't quite there.
And let's not forget his performance in the wet conditions of the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix.
Right.
He climbed up to 4th after starting further back, reminding everyone why he earned that Rain King nickname.
Classic Schumi defying the odds in those challenging conditions.
Yeah.
What about his final season, 2012? Did he go out on a high note?
He may not have won a race, but he did secure a podium finish at the European Grand Prix in Valencia.
Wow.
At 43 years old. He proved he still had the skills and the racecraft to compete at the highest level.
A podium finish in his final year. There's nothing to scoff at. But looking at the bigger picture, what was his overall contribution to the Mercedes team? They weren't exactly championship contenders during his time there.
True, but his experience and his technical feedback were invaluable to the team's development. You know? He helped lay the foundation for the dominance that Mercedes would later achieve with Lewis Hamilton. His input, his insights into car development and strategy, all of that contributed to their eventual success.
So even in those later years, he was still shaping the future of the sport, even if he wasn't directly reaping the rewards. It's interesting how his career seems to have come full circle. From building a team at Benetton to rebuilding Ferrari and then playing this crucial role in Mercedes' rise, he had a real knack for elevating teams to new heights.
That's a great observation. Schumacher wasn't just a driver. He was a leader, a motivator, someone who pushed everyone around him to strive for excellence.
Yeah.
You know, his meticulousness, his attention to detail, his relentless pursuit of improvement, these qualities influenced everyone he worked with.
We've talked about his driving, his controversies, his impact on teams, but how do we actually define Schumacher's legacy? It's a complicated question with no easy answers.
Yeah. It's a legacy that continues to be debated and reevaluated. On the one hand, you have the undeniable statistics the 7 world championships, the 91 race wins, the numerous records that he holds.
Right.
He redefined what it meant to be a successful Formula One driver.
He raised the bar, setting a standard that few have been able to match.
But then there's the other side of the coin. The controversies, the accusations of unsportsmanlike conduct, the aggressive driving style that sometimes crossed the line. These incidents tarnished his image in the eyes of some and sparked all these heated debates about, the ethics of winning at all costs.
He was a polarizing figure,
Yeah.
a driver who evoked both admiration and disapproval.
And then there's the question of his influence on the sport itself. Did he elevate Formula One to new heights as popularity and professionalism? Or did his dominance and occasionally questionable tactics actually harm the sport's image?
It's a fascinating duality. He was both a hero and an anti-hero, a champion who sometimes resorted to controversial means to achieve his goals.
That complexity, that tension between his brilliance and his flaws is what makes him such a compelling figure, even years after his retirement. His legacy isn't, a simple equation. It's a multifaceted narrative that continues to be written as the sport evolves and new generations of drivers emerge.
He left an undeniable mark, for better or for worse. But beyond the trophies and the controversies, what about the man himself? Was there more to Michael Schumacher than the intense competitor we saw on the track?
Schumacher was notoriously private, guarding his personal life very fiercely. He rarely gave interviews or made public appearances outside of racing events. He was a bit of an enigma, a puzzle with some missing pieces.
So we have this intensely driven, sometimes ruthless competitor on the track, but a shroud of secrecy surrounding his personal life. It adds to the mystique, doesn't it?
It does. But even with this guarded nature, glimpses of the man behind the helmet do emerge from the sources. He was known to be a devoted family man, fiercely protective of his wife and children, and those who knew him personally described him as kind, generous, even shy in private settings.
That's quite a contrast to the Schumi persona that we saw in Formula One.
It highlights the fact that public personas, especially in a high-pressure environment like Formula One, rarely tell the whole story. There was a depth to Michael Schumacher that we as observers may never fully grasp, and maybe that's part of what continues to fascinate us. We're drawn to the unanswered questions, the glimpses of humanity beneath the surface of this incredibly driven individual.
It's like trying to solve a mystery, piecing together these fragments of information to understand a really complex and ultimately elusive figure. But there's another layer to this puzzle that we need to explore. The relationships that shaped Michael Schumacher's journey. The rivalries, the partnerships, the clashes of personality that defined his time in Formula One.
That's where we'll pick up in the final part of this deep dive. Stay tuned as we delve into the web of connections that influenced the career of Michael Schumacher.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the career of Michael Schumacher. We've explored his driving style, his controversial moments, his complex legacy, but to really get a grasp of his journey, we need to examine the relationships that shaped him. The individuals who pushed him, challenged him, and ultimately, contributed to the legend he became.
Exactly. Formula One is as much about the personalities as it is about the cars and the technology. And Schumacher, throughout his career, found himself entangled in some really fascinating relationships both on and off the track.
Let's start with his rivals, those drivers who battled him wheel to wheel for championship glory. Mika Häkkinen, for example, he was his main adversary during those, epic Ferrari-McLaren battles in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Their duels were legendary, filled with mutual respect, but also this intense desire to win. Häkkinen, known for his smooth, precise driving style, presented a stark contrast to Schumacher's more aggressive approach. They pushed each other to the absolute limit, forcing each other to become better drivers.
Yeah, their rivalry is often considered one of the greatest in Formula One history. But beyond the on-track battles, what was their relationship like?
Yeah.
Away from the cameras.
The sources kind of paint this picture of respect tinged with a bit of caution. Häkkinen acknowledged Schumacher's incredible talent, but also expressed frustration with some of his tactics, particularly after their controversial clash at the 2000 Belgian Grand Prix.
Right.
That incident where Schumacher aggressively squeezed Häkkinen onto the grass at high speed created a bit of a rift between them.
Yeah, that's a move that could have ended really badly.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine maintaining a cordial relationship after something like that.
There were definitely moments of tension, but ultimately they recognized each other's brilliance, even if they didn't always agree with each other's methods. It's this delicate balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Respecting your rival while also trying to beat them at their own game.
Absolutely. And then we have Damon Hill, Schumacher's primary rival during those fiery Benetton years. That rivalry seemed to have like a different edge to it, a bit more personal, perhaps.
Their relationship was certainly more volatile. Hill, carrying the legacy of his father, Graham Hill, was determined to forge his own path to championship glory. Their 1994 title fight culminated in that infamous collision at the Australian Grand Prix, which secured Schumacher's first world championship but left a very bitter aftertaste.
Yeah, many believe that Schumacher deliberately drove into Hill, costing him the championship. That incident has been analyzed and debated endlessly with no real definitive consensus. But what about the aftermath? Did Hill ever forgive Schumacher?
Their relationship was strained for many years. Hill has been pretty outspoken about his disapproval of Schumacher's tactics in that race, feeling that it was a deliberate act that robbed him of the championship.
Right.
While there has been a gradual thawing of the ice over time, their relationship remains complex. Hill has acknowledged Schumacher's achievements, but he's also been consistently critical of his driving style and his sometimes, questionable sportsmanship.
It's a rivalry that seems to have left lasting scars, a reminder of the, intense emotions and the high stakes involved in Formula One. But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Schumacher's teammates. What was it like to share a garage with this relentless force of nature?
It was undoubtedly a challenge. Rubens Barrichello, who partnered with Schumacher at Ferrari for 6 seasons, experienced this firsthand. Schumacher was the undisputed #1 driver, the focal point of the team's strategy. Barrichello, while talented in his own right, often found himself relegated to more of a supporting role, expected to help Schumacher achieve his goals.
That must have been a really difficult situation to navigate, constantly being compared to a driver of Schumacher's caliber.
It was, and then there's that infamous incident at the 2002 Austrian Grand Prix, where Barrichello, leading the race, was ordered by the team to let Schumacher pass and take the win. That moment, for many, kind of epitomized the challenges of being Schumacher's teammate.
Yeah, that had to be a bitter pill to swallow, sacrificing a race win for the sake of team orders. Did Barrichello ever speak out against that preferential treatment?
He expressed his frustration at times, but he also understood the team's hierarchy and the pressure they were under to secure those championships. He was a very valuable asset to Ferrari, consistently scoring points and playing the role of the reliable teammate, even when it meant sacrificing his own ambitions.
A loyal teammate, even in the face of what some might consider unfair treatment. It speaks to those, complex dynamics that exist within a Formula One team. The balance between individual ambition and the collective pursuit of victory.
And it's worth noting that despite the challenges, Barrichello and Schumacher developed a certain level of camaraderie and mutual respect. They understood the pressures they were both under, and Barrichello has actually spoken quite fondly of Schumacher in the years since his retirement.
So a complex relationship with moments of both tension and genuine connection. It seems to be a recurring theme in Schumacher's story. But let's move on to another crucial figure, his longtime manager, Willy Weber. This was a partnership that spanned decades and played a major role in shaping Schumacher's career.
Willie Weber was more than just a manager. He was a mentor, a confidant, a fierce protector of his star client.
Right.
He negotiated lucrative contracts, managed. Schumacher's public image shielded him from that often intense scrutiny of the media. He was a master strategist, always looking out for Schumacher's best interests, even if it meant clashing with team bosses or other influential figures within the sport.
He sounds like that classic tough-talking manager archetype, the guy who's willing to fight tooth and nail for his client.
That's a fair assessment. Weber wasn't afraid to ruffle feathers. He was known for his hard-nosed negotiating tactics and his unwavering loyalty to Schumacher. Some within the Formula One paddock found him to be a bit abrasive, but there's no denying his effectiveness. He was instrumental in guiding Schumacher's career, helping him navigate the complexities of the sport and secure his place as a global icon.
It's a reminder that success in Formula One, and maybe in any high-stakes endeavor, often relies on having a strong team behind you, people who believe in your abilities and are willing to fight for your success. And in Willie Weber, Schumacher had that staunch ally, that shrewd negotiator, and a loyal friend.
Absolutely. And we can't forget Ross Brawn, the technical director who masterminded Schumacher's success at both Benetton and Ferrari.
Yeah.
He was the mastermind behind those dominant cars, the strategist who helped Schumacher achieve those unprecedented levels of dominance.
The brains behind the operation, so to speak. What was their relationship like? Did they clash, or did they have a sort of shared vision?
Their partnership was based on mutual respect and a deep understanding of each other's strengths. Braun was a brilliant engineer and strategist, and Schumacher had this uncanny ability to translate those strategies into on-track success. They spent countless hours discussing car setups, race tactics, even personal matters. Their bond, forged in the crucible of competition, was a key factor in their shared triumphs.
It's a testament to the power of collaboration, that synergy that can arise when two really talented individuals with a shared goal come together. And in the case of Schumacher and Braun, that goal was to conquer the world of Formula One.
And conquer they did. Their partnership produced some of the most dominant seasons in the history of the sport, showcasing the power of combining technical brilliance with driving prowess.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the life and career of Michael Schumacher, one thing becomes abundantly clear. He was a man of contradictions, a brilliant driver capable of these extraordinary feats on the track, but also a figure prone to controversy and, questionable decisions. A fiercely private individual who guarded his personal life, yet someone who forged these deep and complex relationships with those around him.
He was an enigma, a puzzle that may never be fully solved, but maybe that's part of what makes him so fascinating. We're drawn to those unanswered questions, the glimpses of vulnerability beneath the surface of this intensely driven individual.
Michael Schumacher's legacy isn't, a simple equation. It's a tapestry woven from triumphs and controversies, brilliant driving and questionable tactics, fierce rivalries and deep bonds. He pushed the limits of what was possible in Formula One, leaving this indelible mark on the sport and inspiring generations of drivers.
And his story continues to resonate, sparking debate and prompting us to reevaluate our understanding of what it means to be a champion. He was, without a doubt, one of the most compelling figures in the history of Formula One.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Michael Schumacher. And for you Vintage Car Chronicles fans out there, remember to tune in every day on Spotify for more great content just like this. Yeah, we'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of motorsports.